Here we are in Pirkei Avos Parak Beis Mishnah Hey Hu Haya Omer. He would say this is referring to Hillel. Ein bor yirei chet. A bor is he can't fear sinning. He's an uncivilized, uncultivated type of person. V'lo hamaretz chassid. Someone ignorant cannot be pious. V'lo habayishon lamid. Someone who is bashful, he can't be a learned person. V'lo hakapton malamid. Someone strict or someone impatient will not be able to teach. V'lo kol hamarba b'schora machkim, not someone who excessively increases his business and is occupied with the business. He's not going to become wise. He's not going to become a scholar. Ubamakom she'in anoshim, and in a place where there are no anoshim people, not b'makom she'in ish, like is commonly quoted by people, which is a famous line in Pirkei Avos when there's no chazan available to daven. It's b'makom she'in anoshim, in a place where there's no people. Hishtadel lios ish. You should strive to be a person. Let's go through this one line at a time over here. What is the explanation? Who exactly is a bore, and why can't he fear sinning? Rashi explains he's someone who's empty. He's worse than the Amoritz. He doesn't know about anything. He doesn't know business. What does it mean, lo Amoritz chassid? This is a very important line. Other religions believe, oh, you go to the place of worship once a week, you're pious, you're righteous, you're holy, you're the best. That is exactly what we do not believe in. Judaism teaches us that we believe if you want to be pious, you want to be righteous, you have to learn Torah. You have to have knowledge. Why? Very, very important idea. Because if you don't know anything, how could you be pious? There's a lot of details in our religion, and if you want to properly fulfill all of the mitzvahs, you have to know those details. The Chafetz Chaim writes in his introduction to Chilek Aleph of Mishnah Berurah, "Ubel ado lo yorim ish hayisraeliyas yadav es ragloi." Without learning Torah and halacha, a person doesn't even know how to lift their hands and feet, so to say. The only way to learn to be pious, excuse me, the only way to be pious is if you learn Torah. That's how you're going to know what to do, what the halach is. How could you know what the halach is if you never learned about it? The Stipler says, this is a quote in his biography on page 80, if someone doesn't learn all of the halachas, it's impossible not to make mistakes. Similarly, Rav Shach says, as well in his Rav Shach Speaks on page 115 that you can't be truly pious without study. Same idea over here. Okay, so this is the idea over here. This is what we have to keep in mind, and we have to be very, very careful about this. What is the explanation of someone bashful can't learn? Rashi explains that someone who remains silent and doesn't ask questions when he has them, guess what? This individual, he's going to end up not knowing anything. Take a look at the Gemara in Brachos Samach Gimel Beis recordings from Rabbi.com. Similarly, Bartenura explains that someone who's embarrassed to ask questions because they might make fun of him, he's always going to remain with doubts. There's a beautiful story that the art scroll over here on Pirkei Avos quotes. Rav Chaim Shmulevitz related that he once visited with his uncle Rav Avram Yafin, the Rosh Hashiva of Navardik, the Rosh Hashiva of the Navardik Yeshiva in Bialystok. So he visited the yeshiva with Rabbi Yafin. So Rabbi Yafin, Rabbi Chaim Shmulevitz visited the Rosh Hashiva of the Navardik Yeshiva in Bialystok, and they asked, point out who's the biggest lamdan over here, who can learn the most in depth. They pointed to a certain individual. Who can learn, who learns the most broad knowledge, the biggest bakiyas, point to another. Who's the best in Mussar? They point to another. They point to all these people, and then he said, okay, and who's the best person in the yeshiva? So Rav Avram pointed to a fourth person. So, so, um, so this is the idea. So he pointed to a first person. He said, wait a second. If the others excelled in all of these areas, how could this fourth person be the best one? He said, no. This one is the best because he's the biggest mavakesh. He's the biggest seeker. He wants it the most. He is tireless in his efforts to achieve growth. That Talmud, that student ended up becoming Rabbi Yaakov Yisrael Kanievsky, known as the Stipler Gaon. Okay, so just like one isn't embarrassed to ask directions in order to reach his destination, so too we can't be embarrassed if he asks to understand something in Torah. He wants to try to navigate the roadmap which guides a person from this world to the next. The Stipler had that characteristic. What's the explanation of someone who gets angry cannot teach? The Rambam explains that this mission refers to someone who gets upset about everything. Rashi explains this Mishnah is referring to a rabbi who has a short temper, and he gets upset when one of his students asks the same question a few times. Rabbeinu Yoina explains that a rabbi needs to answer anyone who asks him a question. If they don't understand the answer, he has to repeat the answer again until they understand the Gemara and Eruvin and Dalit. Second explanation, Miri explains that his anger will prevent his words from coming out in a gentle way. It's another idea. What's the explanation of anyone who does a lot of business will not be wise? Rashi explains, someone who does a lot of business, he can't gain a lot of Torah knowledge. He's busy working. The Gemara in Eruvin says this explicitly, Lo me'evar ayami. And with the drush over there, Anun Hayamar Aleph. Rabbeinu Yoina explains someone who's involved with business the entire day and makes his business set in the main course, and he makes his Torah temporary and the side dish, he's not going to become wise. Miri explains he's going to be spending so much time working, he doesn't have enough time to learn. Sefer Musar explains, is quoted by the Masifti in the Al Kapirim on page 40, that when one isn't working, it's hard for him to learn. Even when the guy who's doing a lot of business, when he sits down to learn, it's hard for him to learn because his mind is preoccupied. He's always thinking about work. The Gemara in Nido says this, talks about that someone who wants to get smarter, he should learn more Torah and decrease his business. That's on Nida and Ayin Base. Taisvis Yom Tov explains that the Mishnah purposely says kol because not everyone who does a lot of business will be wise, but some people they could actually do both. The Gemara in Ilfa, with Ilfa, the Gemara in Taanis Suchaf Alf Manalf. See the recordings there, which will be out soon. Only 5 daf away, so just 4 actually. So it'll be out within the next week. Rabbi Aaron Cutler always carried a Mishnah Berurah with him and learned it whenever there were brief intervals in his hectic and demanding communal activities. It's the founder of like Rabbi Aaron Cutler, founder of Beis Mishkavo, BMG. The lesson over here is equally applicable to the average person. Every single moment we have to utilize, and every single moment is in fact precious. Chafetz Chaim illustrated this idea with the parable. A man was once warned by his doctor not to enter the bathhouse because the excessive heat and steam were going to be a danger to his health. One day he passed the bathhouse, he couldn't resist, and he entered. The heat weakened in, and he felt like he was going to faint. He headed towards the pool, but the door was locked. He called for help, and a bystander tried to sprinkle some cold water from a bucket on him. The sick man said, "I need a cold pool. A few drops won't help." This rescuer said, "You're right, but until we can get open up the pool, and you're going to be at least be refreshed and be refreshed till we could open the pool." Be refreshed from this little bit of cold water. It's still better than fainting. So the idea is if we can't get everything, we should at least get something. A lot of people would certainly prefer to immerse themselves in the refreshing waters of Torah. But if that's not possible, it's foolish to refuse a partial rescue by denying the benefit of limited exposure to the waters of Torah. Beautiful idea quoted by the art scroll over here. What's the explanation? In a place where there are no men, strive to be a man. 5 explanations. Rashi explains this refers to communal matters. However, if there are other people who are involved with communal matters, then just continue learning Torah. Explanation 2, Rabbeinu Yonah explains if there's no one else around to awaken you to perform mitzvahs, strive to awaken yourself. Explanation 3, Medrash Shmuel explains that in a place where no one is teaching Torah, you should teach Torah yourself. Explanation 4, Medrash Shmuel explains that in a place where there's no one teaching. Okay, that's the same idea. Sorry, so it's going to be 4 explanations. Uh, and lastly, the Medrash Shmuel explains that in a private place you should strive to be a man and don't sin. But Makom Shein Anashim, if there's no one around, no, still strive to be a man, meaning don't sin and be careful over there. Okay, that's this mission over here.